start.
Welcome to Knowledge and Equity Analysis of Three Models. My name is Heather Morrison. I'm the Principal Investigator of the Sustaining the Knowledge Commons Research Program, which is funded by Canada's Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. I'm based at the University of Ottawa in Canada, and I will now ask my colleague to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rahman. I teach at Simon Fraser University, and I'm a research associate for Sustaining Knowledge Commons project. We build our study from the idea of the global knowledge commons, which draws from the Budapest Open Access Initiative declaration. This declaration advocates for a global and universal sharing of knowledge of humankind. The vision of open access in this declaration includes not just the concept of free to access and free to read, but also freedom for everyone who are qualified to participate in the global quest for knowledge. Open access has already changed the participation barrier of the countries in the global south to some extent. For instance, if we look at the top 10 countries with open access journals in 2019, we'll find Indonesia, Brazil, Iran, Turkey, and Colombia. This signifies a growing interest in open access in these countries. Over to you, Heather.
The Bielefeld academic search engine cross-searches open access repositories around the globe. The numbers are staggering. There are over 200 million documents, about 60% of which are free of charge, and the growth rate is in the millions on a monthly basis. Here we see that the participation is global, but not equal. Africa in particular stands out as having fewer repositories than other continents. Next slide. The growth of open access in the past 2 decades has been nothing short of phenomenal. Today, there are thousands of OA journals, books, and repositories, and millions of documents are free to read. About half the articles indexed in PubMed in the past 5 years are free full text. 50% is good, but it's not 100%. That's why there are many initiatives to push OA to the 100% mark. Next slide. Will these initiatives lead to both free access and knowledge equity in the sense of participation? And how can this work? This is the essence of our research questions. We selected 3 initiatives for analysis. The 3 models we chose are Plan S, the Global Coalition for Open Access to Sustainability, or SCOSS, and PubMedCentral International. You can see from the start dates that all 3 are fairly recent, and these are just a few of today's major initiatives. Plan S is primarily EU-based and involves national and charitable research funders with policies requiring open access. SCOSS is global, although participation is uneven, and participants are self-selected. PMC builds on the US-based PubMedCentral, and currently has 1 mirror site in the EU, funded by national research funders and charities such as the Wellcome Trust. Back over to you, Anis.
We build our theoretical perspective from the discussion of epistemic inequality. Andrew and Opanachi discussed the situation of researchers in Africa as one of epistemic oppression that does not allow for full participation and the ability to draw on local and traditional knowledge. Chan and colleagues discussed the limitations of north to south open access and advocate for south to north and south to south knowledge sharing. Masaka discusses the need to bring the idea of open production of knowledge into open access conversations, and argues that the production of scholarly knowledge must be polycentric. But this is a very tough work. It is because the global commercial scholarly publishing industry is very much dominated by the West. The commercialization of open access initiatives are contributing to reinforce epistemic inequality by creating new areas of underdevelopment. This doesn't have to be this way. There are other models. For example, CLO is a Latin American collective approach of open full access to scholarly journals using a subsidy model. There are many other local models such as Open Library of Humanities, America, and Redalyc. This shows that there is potential that if governed in the right way, open access initiatives can be made more democratized. We examine whether these chosen models can be made more democratized using Ostrom's principle. For example, PLANES, at best transition the existing scholarly publishing system dominated by commercial interest from toll access to free access. This would further the free-to-read aspect of open access, but would likely maintain or increase epistemic inequality. Even the transition of the existing system to open access is problematic and could result in an increase in the cost of scholarly dissemination and has the potential for market reversal. SCOSS stands out as the best effort to date, actively encouraging full global participation. In particular, the participation of the Association of African Universities is noteworthy. However, SCOSS is still far from global in scope, funding is very limited, and the focus is on temporary support for a few initiatives, so this is certainly not the long-term solution. PubMedCentral and PubMed are a shining star of free-to-read or north-to-south knowledge sharing. However, in terms of participation, the rules are set by the US, and the technical requirements effectively excludes all but the wealthiest regions. Even Canada cannot afford to continue participating. Even though it offers a global public good for free access, its mission states that it is for the Americans. Drawing from these findings of these three cases, next we question whether Ostrom's design principles for commons can be applied to them, which is both about equity and equality in sharing common resources. Over to you, Heather.
Thank you. The question is basically, how might a collective non-commercial approach function on a global level? One approach for analysis that seems promising flows from Ostrom's work on the commons. Although her work focused on physical common pool resources, it seems that some of the design principles just might fit in the electronic context as well. Here are just a few highlights of our commons analysis. For the purposes of achieving epistemic equality, some of Ostrom's design principles for the commons do seem useful. For example, understanding the boundaries of an initiative and its appropriation and provision rules can help to determine who the initiative is meant to serve and how. Similarly, a global knowledge commons would seem to be better served by collective choice arrangements such as SCOSS, rather than ones that are regionally dominated, such as PMCI and PLANES. The idea of nesting is that commons or collectives are grouped together in larger commons or collectives. This approach seems like a fruitful way to meet local needs while achieving a global public good. For example, many of the members of SCOSS are themselves collectives. In conclusion, there are different visions of open access. Some, but not all, include the concept of participation that we feel is necessary for knowledge equity. Our work illustrates that it is possible to analyze and assess different initiatives from the perspective of whether they are likely to advance knowledge equity or not. And we advocate that this analysis become part of the process of developing every open access initiative. So thank you Next slide, please. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to your questions and comments.
Thank you, everyone.